Hello, my friends. It is Thursday, September 12th, and this is the Daily Brief. If you're looking for Ukraine war news, this is the place. Let's start with the casualties. 1,270 Russian casualties day over day. 11 tanks, 17 armored fighting vehicles, 73 artillery systems, 93 vehicles and fuel tanks. So the pieces on the field have gone up a little bit. The casualties are about the same as they have been for some time. So Russia launched a missile attack on a civilian vessel carrying wheat to Egypt. Okay, this is unusual. After it left Ukrainian territorial waters, we are awaiting the world's reaction. Wheat and food security should never be targets for missiles, said Zelensky. Okay, but there's a little bit more to the story, and you can see the ship. I think that says safety first in the background, ironically, and you can see some of the damage to the ship. Okay, but let's look at Reuters here because this is really interesting. When I got into the article itself, okay, a spokesperson for the Ukrainian Navy told Reuters the grain vessel was not in Ukraine's grain corridor. Huh? Okay, at the time of the strike. He said the vessel was in Romania's maritime economic zone. So, wait, is that a violation of NATO territory or what's going on there? It's really incredible that NATO won't even shoot down a Russian missile or drone inside NATO territory, says Jay in Kyiv. It's just amazing cowardice. And here's the Lithuanian defense minister. He's responding to this. Lithuania urges NATO to shoot down Russian drones entering alliance territory. Lithuanian defense minister said, quote, the air patrol should not only monitor, but also, when necessary, speed up NATO's decision-making process so that planes can take off immediately and destroy the drones. Like a drone just, and this is the defense minister from Lithuania, and the drone in Romania, they shepherded it through so that they could go and strike Ukraine. They didn't shoot it down. Like at some point, you're just teaching Putin that he can do more of these things and it'll be okay. Meanwhile, a $50 million Russian Su-30 SM multi-role fighter jet was shot down over the Black Sea between Odessa and occupied Crimea, thinking that it could fly there and nothing was going to pester it. But okay, if you get into the article from Newsweek, destruction of the Su-30 SM jet by MANPADS missile. What? That's that shoulder-fired thing, right? The shoulder-fired rocket. MANPADS missile from a GUR boat in the Black Sea near Crimea to drilling rig. So this was shot down from a MANPADS on a boat. Like, that's pretty incredible. Okay. Russians claim Ukraine targets bomber base near Finland for this 2 consecutive days. They did this yesterday. They apparently did it today. 2 drones were reportedly shot down near Olenya air base today and 3 more yesterday. But how does that go? How do these drones travel unmolested all the way up to the very top of Russia? That's really the question here. Okay, and what's becoming an almost daily occurrence, another train derails in Russia, this time in Belgorod region. I'm not suggesting that this was, sabotage or anything along those lines. It doesn't have to be. They're just not maintaining the systems like the roads and the rails and things along these lines. And so it's getting destructive. Okay, let's shift gears and talk about Kursk. Analysis of the Institute for the Study of War suggests that the Russian military intends to cut off the Ukrainian offensive in the Kursk region before launching a coordinated operation to dislodge defense forces. And really where they attacked was here, going from Kornevo down to Nagost. Okay, here's a little bit more directly from the ISW. Russian forces began counterattacks along the western edge of the Ukrainian salient. A salient is something that sticks up like this as opposed to a flat line. A salient is like a tip of the spear. Ukrainian salient in Kursk Oblast, and reportedly sees several settlements northeast and south of Kornevo on September 10th and 11th. The size, scale, and potential prospects of the September 11th Russian counterattacks in Kursk are unclear. But again, you see the same picture here. And then when you go down into a geolocated footage, published on September 11th, indicates that Russian forces retook positions east of Zerhali, northeast of Kornevo. So again, Russian mill bloggers claim that Russian forces launched the mechanized counterattack from the north near Kornevo, and the Russian forces quickly advanced into Nagost. Okay, but here's what I wanted to point out. Russian sources claim that elements of the Russian 51st VDV Regiment and 155th Naval Infantry Brigade advanced. Okay, so VDV is actually an airborne designation. Russian Airborne Forces is for these words I can't pronounce, is the Airborne Forces branch of the Russian Armed Forces. Okay, so they're not fighting now with conscripts or those that are like, wait, we just give up. They're actually having some other forces move there. Now, this leads itself to, well, this comment by Zelensky: the Russians have launched a counteroffensive in the Kursk region. It's going according to our plan. So if the part of it's true, if the plan is to move other forces away from the other front line into Kursk, that is factually correct. The Ukrainian president also clarified that Kyiv has long seen the accumulation of troops on the territory of Belarus and is monitoring the process. But in another regard, Andrew Perpetua was explaining, because he watches, he looks at all the videos of destruction of tanks and vehicles and things along these lines. The Russian counterattack in Kursk was a high-risk attack that had a low chance to succeed, and Ukraine should have been able to defend against it. So it was kind of a bad idea on the Russian part, but on the Ukrainian side, they didn't really prepare like they should have. At some point, Ukraine might want to look into investing in leadership who don't constantly leave their men unprepared for even the most obvious dangers. Doing things like having ambush points set up along the highway and ready to mine the roads. Like, if you had prepared, this could have gone really, really well for Ukraine. But again, I'm not sitting in a place where I can judge. This isn't like, I'm sitting in my nice, warm, comfortable home. I sleep in my warm bed, so I'm not going to be an armchair general in that sense. I'm just reporting and providing context. Okay, now, never fear if you're Russian. Putin has ordered his military to push Ukrainian forces out of the Kursk region by October 1st. And so it's September 12th right now, and okay, you have a few weeks to push them out of Kursk. Of course, Putin tried this before. About 2 years ago, he said he'll have the geographical borders of Donetsk, this area here, the geographical borders by 2 weeks from about this time 2 years ago. And this is where they are now, and this is where they were then. Let me show you that again. This is where they are now 2 years later. This is where they were then. And this is the geographical border of Donetsk. Now let's look at this area near Pokrovsk a little bit more closely. Russian forces make marginal gains near Kursk. Russians capture a village near Pokrovsk. Russian mill bloggers warn that exhaustion and manpower shortages may impact further Russian offensive efforts. And I said it's September 12th. First frost is supposed to come mid-September, and then it's going to turn colder and colder and into mud season and that sort of thing. General Winter may save Pokrovsk if the Russians can't hurry up. Okay, geolocated footage on September 10th confirmed that Ukrainian forces made minor advances in one area, Russian forces advancing along another area. It's really not going very far or very fast. Okay, let's switch gears. Representative of a country that occupied a nuclear power plant, Lavrov, accused Ukraine of nuclear tea. Meanwhile, last night, a Russian Shahed drone came close to the Klemensky nuclear power plant during an attack on Ukraine. Russia is deliberately planning the routes of missiles and drones so that they pass in particular over Ukraine's nuclear facilities. And this is not the first time. It's part of Russia's T tactics. Like, that's got some, like, what the Russians very often do is what we're doing, we say you're doing. It's a very strange mirroring effect. It's like a weird kind of projection. Okay, Russian MP Gularev, who constantly issues threats of strikes on Europe and UK and the US, got into a traffic accident and was shocked by how the Russians live with such bad roads. The suspension was ripped out. The potholes are so bad that you can't get around. I don't know how you live. A famous road is full of potholes. It's impossible to drive through, he said. So his car got jacked up and he's not happy about this because of the potholes, but Now, this is the kind of thing that they say in Russian state media. We don't need to touch our strategic weapons. We've got enough of others to make sure that there is nothing left of Britain, our sworn enemy. Or here's another Russian propagandist talking about how our barrier should be the Atlantic, the perfect place for our troops, Berlin, Lisbon, Madrid, and how beautiful they looked in Paris. Brothers Belarusians are with us, and if necessary, we will turn to China. Okay, that's the kind of thing that they're talking about on Russian state media. All right. You know that the presidential debate was just a couple of days ago. I cut out all the places where they talked about Ukraine and put it into this one little video titled, "Do you want Ukraine to win this war?" Because they asked that point blank. And so you can hear the candidates say what they said about Ukraine in this one video. Meanwhile, Garry Kasparov was saying, "I can't vote in the US, but I'm honored to live here, and I have always admired it. I don't much care for Harris or many of her policy positions, but even more after seeing Trump tonight, I look forward to vehemently disagreeing with her for 4 years as US president." I think that is capturing a lot of, like, if you're on the left, you want Harris and you want Ukraine to win, and okay. If you're on the right and you want Ukraine to win, you don't want her policy positions, and I think Kasparov captures a lot of that conflict in that statement. Okay, more air-to-air combat just because I think it's fun. And here, oh, just missed it. Come back. If you don't succeed, at first you don't succeed, try again. Bam. Wow. Okay. Last little thing that I'm going to leave you with, Russia attacks the Red Cross vehicles in Donetsk region. The ICRC, the International Committee of the Red Cross workers, were in a truck transporting humanitarian aid. 3 workers were killed, 2 others were injured. I'm not showing the photos, but you can tell from just a little bit of smoke that's peeking over the top of it what's happened. Now, Darth Putin, the satirist, captured the way that Russians think when they're not penalized for bad behavior. The cross makes an easy aiming point. All right, my friends, either Saturday or next Saturday, maybe even both, we're going to have a live stream just for members and patrons. Everyone will be able to watch after, but only members and patrons will be able to ask the questions and be involved live. Thank you for your time. Thank you for the likes, the shares, the subscribes, and thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.